Hello, my name is Nick Powell. I'm a reporter with City and State. Joining me today on Last Look is Mario Cilento, president of the New York State AFL-CIO. Thanks for joining us today, Mario.
Nick, thank you for having me.
So we're here today to talk about the Making New York Work campaign, which includes a video on the website, which we'll take a look at right now.
For too long, the public policy agenda in New York State has been set by the corporations and billionaires. They have rammed through cuts to the workforce, cuts in wages and benefits, cuts in vital services, all based on a promise that cuts would turn around the economy. But are we any better off? Poverty's on the rise. Unemployment and underemployment are still pervasive, and New York leads the country in income inequality. Now, the focus in Albany seems to be short-sighted tax cuts, which will lead to further cuts in education, healthcare, public safety, and infrastructure. You know, the things we rely on every day. Meanwhile, as a state, we give $7 billion away each year in tax incentives to lure and keep businesses, an approach that clearly isn't working. Like a high school senior without a prom date, we've acted in desperation, just trying to get any potential suitor to look our way. We need to start looking at things from the perspective of the workers who call our state home, not the corporations who call New York their tax break layover. The first key is changing our focus from short-term jobs to careers. As a state, we can't subsidize jobs that may not be here down the road. We need to develop industries that create opportunities from one generation to the next. The second key is ensuring that there are basic standards when tax dollars are invested, so that we create family-sustaining jobs. Remember, no one is forcing private companies to take public money. If businesses choose to do so, it is incumbent upon us to expect more than the bare minimum in return. Finally, there must be accountability. In 2011, 46% of projects receiving support from IDAs, which grant tax incentives to businesses, lost jobs, failed to create jobs, or never promised any jobs. We can't afford to subsidize businesses that fail to create or even promise to create jobs. If businesses don't live up to their end of the bargain, then we need a way to recoup our money. But even if we fix broken incentive programs, tax breaks alone are not a job creation strategy. Remember, taxes are not inherently good or bad. They are a means to providing the services we value as a society. So when you ask what taxes we should cut or reforms we should make, the more fitting question is, what are you prepared to sacrifice? Your child's education? The roads or mass transit you take to work every day? The police officer patrolling your street? Or how about care for the disabled? Investing in those services is essential to long-term recovery and, in turn, lasting shared prosperity. It is time to try something new. It's time to start making New York work for hard-working New Yorkers.
So tell me a little bit about Making New York Work. Why did you think now was the time to really change the public policy debate in New York?
Working men and women have been on the defensive in this state and across this country for many years now. We've had to defend our basic wages, benefits, and conditions of employment. And the time to stop it is now, because we're recognizing the income inequality in this state and across this country is greater than it's ever been. It's higher in this state than it is in any other state in the country. And we have had to play defense and defend ourselves from corporate America. We've had to defend ourselves from conservative think tanks, conservative media outlets, and we've said, we have a point of view. Working men and women in this state have a point of view when it comes to all economic development issues, whether it's tax policy, whether it's job creation, whether it's investment vehicles. The way we're doing things in this state haven't been working for many years. And what we're saying is, if we take a new approach to this, and you take the point of view of working men and women, we have ideas, we have concepts, we have real thought process on how to get past where we are today, things that haven't been working for many years now.
Now, one of the priorities of making New York work, according to the website, was lifting lower wages. Now, obviously, New York passed minimum wage increase last session in Albany. What, in your view, can still be done to remedy that?
See, it's more than just that. We talk about job creation a lot. We talk about jobs. We have to talk about more than just that. We have to talk about long-term, sustainable, generational jobs. Jobs that take you from one generation to the next. Creating jobs just for the sake of creating jobs doesn't get you where you need to be. The problem is what we've been doing is we talk about an economic recovery. This is a soft recovery, meaning that we're replacing good-paying jobs with benefits with low-paying jobs with minimal or no benefits. That's not a recovery. The way you do this is, the way you get to long-term recovery and ultimately long-term economic prosperity is by bringing new jobs, new industries in, having those long-term sustainable jobs that go from generation to generation. That's why we supported the Casino Gaming Initiative. When you bring in new jobs and new industries, you do a lot of things. First of all, those new workers are in, they're going to work, they're going to pay taxes, you're going to have more money in the local economies throughout the state, so the tax bases rise. When you have that, those local municipalities are able to do a lot of things. First, they can maintain their public sector workforce, reverse the trend of having to lay off and outright let go of public sector workers throughout the state. So you're able to maintain your public sector workforce. Those workers in turn pay taxes. While you have the new private sector workers paying taxes, you now have more money not only in the local tax base, but in the local business communities because they all buy goods and services. You now have those private sector businesses are able to invest in and create new jobs and new opportunities. So now you have more money in the public sector and the private sector. What does that allow you to do? You have more revenue. You can do the things that we need to do, which is invest in infrastructure. We have 2,000 bridges in this state in dire need of repair. There was a federal study done just last year. We have 2,000 bridges in need of repair that we can't do. We can't address because we don't have the money to do it. If you're allowed to do things like that and invest in the things we need, you'll have a thriving public sector, private sector, and building trades, union or not. And the fact of the matter is when all sectors of this workforce are humming, that's how you have long-term economic prosperity. These are the things we're talking about. We talk about tax policy. We don't live in a vacuum. People talk about tax cuts. They want to cut taxes. Well, look, here's the thing. We all want to pay less taxes if you live in a vacuum. What we're trying to make everyone understand is this, and it's really very important. When you cut taxes, and it's very basic, if you cut taxes, there is a direct link to a cut in services. We're going to have to do without because you're pulling money out of the economy. When you pull money out of the economy, you're going to have to cut something. We're going to cut either continue to cut education or healthcare or mental health facilities, public safety, public transportation, infrastructure. We're not going to have enough money for that. We have to make the general public aware of the fact that we don't live in this vacuum and that there's a standard of living and a quality of life that we have come to expect as New Yorkers and that we have a right to expect. It's really, that's what this is about. It's about turning the tide. We talk about corporate tax breaks. In this state, we give out $7 billion a year in corporate tax breaks, $7 billion a year. If that was the answer, we wouldn't be in the jam that we're in. You know, we're facing a $1.7 billion budget deficit going into next year. That's not the answer. What we're saying is that there are ways to do this that are smarter and really more progressive than what we're doing now. Take a look at industrial development agencies. IDAs, these are local governments that give tax breaks to incoming businesses in their communities. We give out hundreds of millions of dollars in tax breaks to small businesses through the IDA system. Last year, 46% of those companies that received IDA money either didn't create the jobs they promised, lost jobs, or didn't promise to create jobs. Now, how do we give money to a new industry, a new business coming in without the promise of a job? What we're saying is we need better oversight, transparency, accountability, clawback provisions that say, and I'm oversimplifying this, but that say, in fact, if we're going to give you $1 million in tax breaks and you're going to create 1,000 jobs, create the 1,000 jobs. If you don't, if you create 500 jobs, we need to get that money back, not to punish that employer, but to give it to the next employer on the list so that they, in fact, can create those jobs. There's got to be a dollar amount commensurate to the amount of jobs you're going to create in any particular area of the state. And it's going to be different in New York City than it is in Buffalo or Rochester or Syracuse or Long Island. But we have to figure out a way to do this better. And that's what this is all about. This whole initiative is about educating our members, educating the general public, educating our elected officials throughout the state that says, look, working men and women have a point of view. We want to begin the dialogue in this state from their point of view, rather than having to always play defense. And that's, with 2.5 million members in this state, we're able to do it, and we're going to do it.
I'm glad you brought up the corporate tax breaks, because it seems like a portion of the Making New York Work agenda is aimed at what is deemed as corporations and billionaires driving the agenda in Albany. Are you at all worried that folks in the media and otherwise might skew that as a a form of class warfare?
No, look, here's the thing. The labor movement in and of itself is not opposed to tax breaks. We support the film tax credit. It has been wildly successful. There's been a 25% increase in the jobs in the entertainment industry since that tax break took place. I think we've netted over $300 million in revenue for the state since the tax break. What we're saying is that it's not black or white, right or wrong. We have a point of view. We're willing to work with everyone, the business community, the labor movement, our elected officials, to get things done in a way that makes some sense for all New Yorkers, for all the taxpayers, for everyone in our society. That's what this is about. The class warfare thing, people end up, and entities end up fighting wars of rhetoric rather than just talking about the issues. And if we talk about these issues that we just laid out, I am confident that the point of view of working men and women will show a better path to economic prosperity for the state.
Now, you and I have talked in the past about IDAs, which you just you mentioned before. Now, why do you think, what has contributed to the proliferation of IDAs in the state? And as you mentioned, it seems like they haven't necessarily followed through on some of their promises.
I mean, I think there's a culture of corporate tax breaks, and we see that a lot. As I mentioned, $7 billion a year in various forms. I think everyone's looking for a way to draw jobs into the state, and that's admirable. And we have to do more of that. And that's, why we come back to supporting the casino gaming initiative and bringing in new industries. What we're saying is the process isn't working. Fix and tighten up the process. Use the money that you're, it's tax break, so it's, the money still has to come in, and you're foregoing the money, as I guess is the best way to say it. But there are ways to do it to make sure that you're getting the bang for that buck. I think that's what we owe the taxpayers of the state. That's, so again, it's not black and white,
Now, are there any other legislative priorities coming in for this coming session that you'd want to shed light on?
Well, again, we start off with the budget, and you go from there. And again, a lot of the budget, we're going to have to see what it looks like. I think, but certainly IDA reform is a big piece. If we can do that, that's part of the whole tax policy and really economic development. We'll start from there. There are other issues. There are child care issues, safe patient handling, safe staffing issues. And again, there are always issues for the public sector, private sector, and building trades that we'll get to as the session goes on. But we're going to focus on the budget in the first few months of the session, and we'll go from there.
All right. Mario Cilento, president of the New York State AFL-CIO. Thanks for joining us today.
Nick, thank you for having me.
For more editions of Last Look, visit our website at cityandstateny.com.